My wife will say that about me too. She'll say when I get with somebody I've got that I can converse with, she goes, and she gives me this look.
The look, yeah.
Yeah, like,
I think that's the most important thing in marriage, to know the look. I think that's one of the most important.
it's how you react to the look.
And how you react to the look.
Yeah.
Just, so John, just give them the look.
Have similar coffee. Better if everybody's closer to the front. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's good to be back at it again, and thank you for coming out. It's for the teacher, it's an encouragement to have a half-decent crowd, okay? You know, there's nothing like coming and having one other person and you. You know, you wonder, that's when you begin to wonder, why am I doing this?
For God.
Pardon me?
For God.
Obviously. It's not for prestige and whatever. Anyways, okay, let's pray, and then I'll get us going here. Father, this evening we just thank you that we can gather again and to look into your word. We just pray that you would direct our thoughts, our conversation, and that you would teach us what you have for us. Thank you, too, that those who can't be with us here are with us through the live stream. Pray that you'd encourage them as well, and that you would just make this a profitable time for all of us as we look to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, we are, if you picked up, there were notes at the back to pick up if you didn't have them. So we're starting in 2 Samuel chapter 19, verse 40. We ended at Christmas, when was it? End of June. I was thinking to say Christmas, that's not right. End of June with the demise of Absalom, okay? With the revolt was put down, okay, and so now we're picking it up as King David, who had basically been in exile over on the east side of Jordan, is now returning to where he should be, which is in Jerusalem. So we're going to pick it up at verse 40 of chapter 19, and I put this first comment, but David's troubles are not over yet. There's more to come. He must deal with an additional 4 conflicts after Absalom's rebellion. In chapter 15, verse 3, this is important to get the context here, because, and I put a map in here on the beginning of this page so you can get a kind of a sense of Israel as it was, okay? So you see Israel there in the green, and then you have Judah there in that kind of an orangey color, okay? And so the thing is that in chapter 15, verse 3, it talks about Israel sided with Absalom, okay? So it was basically Judah that was with David, stayed faithful to David during the rebellion. Okay, let's read chapter 19, verse 40, okay, over into chapter 20, okay? So I'll pick that up. Now the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went on with him, and all the people of Judah, and also half the people of Israel accompanied the king. Now, that's interesting. So they've switched back. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said to the king, Why had our brothers, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king and his household and all David's men with him over the Jordan? We're going to come back and discuss these verses, okay? Then all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, Because the king is a close relative to us. Why then are you angry about this matter? Have we eaten at all at the king's expense, or has anything been taken for us? But the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, We have 10 parts in the king, therefore we also have more claim on David than you. Why then did you treat us with contempt? Was it not our advice first to bring back our king? Yet the words of the men of Judah were harsher than the words of the men of Israel. Okay. Stopping there, first of all, looking at the map, you can see where Jerusalem is placed, okay? It's right at the northern part of the tribal boundaries of Judah, okay? And then the thing here interesting, that David returning into the land crosses the Jordan River, and he goes to Gilgal. Gilgal is not showing on this map, but if you find Jericho and you just go northeast 8 miles, you come to Gilgal, okay? And it's on the west side of the Jordan River. So, okay, pausing here, we're going to go back and rehearse some of our history here. Okay, what's significant about Gilgal? You have to go all the way back to Joshua.
I don't remember the Joshua thing, but was not Samuel and Saul had an altercation at Gilgal?
Yeah, they were together. Actually, Saul was anointed at Gilgal to be king. So that's interesting. Okay, can you see how David the first place he goes after he crosses the Jordan is he goes to Gilgal. You see any significance in that? I'm stretching here, but it kind of caught my attention. Why didn't he go to, say, Jericho, or why didn't he go someplace else? Why Gilgal?
Well, one thing is it's not in Judah, it's in Israel.
Yes, it is. Yep. It's in the tribal area of Benjamin. Okay. And Saul was anointed there. Okay. What else was there about Gilgal? Now let's think about this in spiritual terms.
Joshua was talking to an angel in Gilgal, right?
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm asking, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, but this was kind of the central place of worship. Okay? It was where before there was a temple, or everything was brought back to Jerusalem. Gilgal was kind of the place where everybody went, was kind of the central place of worship. Okay? And so I think David here, it could signify, a couple different things. First of all, recognizing that he's the king, he's the anointed king, because this is the place where Saul was anointed. It's possible that if there hadn't been the conflict between Saul and David, David might have been anointed by the nation there rather than at Hebron, okay? And also that this is the place of was kind of the center at one time of spiritual worship. And so it shows the king as God's representative. Okay, I'm just sharing my thoughts on that. I just thought it was interesting that he went to Gilgal. So we have this conflict. So Israel and Judah have always kind of been at odds a bit. Okay, so we see the jealousy coming up. in this situation here. So, what actually starts the conflict? The verses 40 and 41.
Well, who has the most claim on the king?
Yeah, okay.
It's literally a sandbox scroll between children.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, it's kind of like what has not happened before these verses. See, David's been over on the east side of the Jordan, okay? And how does he come back? I'm not talking about going to Gilgal now. I'm talking about, how do I phrase that? Okay, who goes to get him?
Well, I really wish I had gone back and reread the past 2 or 3 chapters. God, I feel terrible here.
Okay, the tribe of Judah basically went to escort him back. Okay, probably the leaders of the tribe. It doesn't mean all the people of Judah, but a good representation went across the Jordan and brought him back. Okay, and so what is Israel saying here?
Why didn't you ask us to go with you?
Exactly. Why did you leave us out? It's kind of like, how come you didn't invite me to the party? Okay, and what's their so that what are they expressing here?
Jealousy?
Yeah, jealousy, right? And they defend that with a comment about the size of their part of the nation, right? Okay? And so they say, well, we're 10 parts, and you're only 2. Okay? It's Judah actually, Benjamin had been incorporated into Judah at this time. Okay? They were kind of combined. All right? And so they're taking this as a slap in the face. This is an insult. Okay? So here you have, now you've just put down a revolt with Absalom, and now you're going to have a civil war, another one, a different one, okay, between the tribes themselves, okay? So what is Judah's reply to Israel's complaint?
We're blood related.
Yeah, we're blood related. So it's kind of, it's like you said, the sandbox, thing, so they're saying, we have 10 parts. Oh, but we're blood related, so we have greater responsibility. Okay, and so it's kind of like, is anybody?
The 10 tribes that kind of went with Absalom first.
They did.
So would they maybe are trying to prove their unity to the king now, seeing as how this vote didn't go anywhere?
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you see it for something else here too? Okay. They followed Absalom. Absalom's revolt has been put down. Now David is coming back to Jerusalem. Okay. And so, you know what it's like when you're confronted with something, and you know that you've been in the wrong, but the easiest way to get out of that is to go on the defensive, okay, or the offensive and put the blame on somebody else. So when they come, what's really in their heart here, besides this jealousy and rivalry?
They probably feel bad for what they did, or regret, at the very least.
Yes, I think that they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
And that we made fools of ourselves. you know. And so to take the onus off themselves, they go on this attack.
You know they're not thinking clearly, or they wouldn't have mentioned the 10 parts to one. To be fair.
Well, that's what usually happens when you're trying to defend yourself. Usually, in most cases, you give enough clues to hang yourself. You know. All right. Okay, so we've talked here about that Israel had said they had 10 shares. It's Simeon. I'm sorry, I said Benjamin. It was Simeon that had been previously absorbed into Judah. So when they talk about the 10 tribes, it's Simeon and Judah that had amalgamated at that time. Okay, now, the conflict between Judah and Israel had deep roots. When King Saul assembled the first army, it was divided between Israel and Judah. Isn't that interesting? Let's look at 1 Samuel 11, verse 8. I just turned it, just like that. I'll read it. It says, he numbered them in Bezek, and the sons of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. Okay? So after the death of Saul, the 10 tribes of Israel, I wrote here, followed Saul's son Ishbosheth. You remember going back to that story? They followed Ishbosheth. Why? Why would they do that? Just think culturally.
He was the king's son.
Yes. So this is the natural progression. The kingship goes to the oldest son, the surviving son. Okay? So they naturally go like the other nations, okay, and follow Ishbosheth, while Judah followed David. And so 2 Samuel chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. Get there. I think I'm going to have some of you look some of these verses up as we go along here, but for this one. So Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he became king over Israel, and he was king for 2 years. The house of Judah, however, followed David. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Okay, so let's see what you remember here. So why does David start his kingship in Hebron? Why not Jerusalem?
There was some location to it, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, it's in the southern part of Judah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Was it still at that time Jerusalem was under the was it Jebusites? There's another people group out there.
Yeah, there was that. Mm-hmm. And also, okay, when Saul died, where was David at that time? Now, I'm trying to remember myself. I'm sorry, but he wasn't at Hebron. Ziklag, yes, thank you. He was over there, and that's where he and his mighty men and their families were all there as part of his running from Saul. Okay, he was over there, and remember he had aligned himself with the Philistines. He did this ruse, made him sound like he was a friend. Okay, and then at any rate, so he was there. So when Saul died, the elders of Hebron came to David and invited him to come to Hebron. Hebron was kind of the, historically, it was where, I think, am I right in saying Abraham settled in that area? Okay, so there's a lot of history there, but they invited him to come back and be king, okay? At this time, the 10 tribes of Israel had sided with Ishbosheth, and so David goes to Hebron. He doesn't assert himself to take the nation. he wants, we talked about this in a previous lesson, he was very wise in waiting for an invitation and for Israel to come and invite him to be king of Israel as well as Judah, okay? And he reigned there, like it said here, for 7 years like that, okay? So it took some time before, shall we say, Israel came to their senses, okay? All right, so this rivalry between Israel and Judah existed many years into David's reign, okay? Let's go to chapter 20, verse 1. Let's move on here. This particular conflict, it's going to get more heated now, okay? So chapter 20, verse 1. Now a worthless fellow, I like the way right from the get-go, he's described as worthless. Now a worthless fellow happened to be there, whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite, and he blew the trumpet and said, "We have no portion in David, nor do we have inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel." It's kind of like, this is war. Okay? All right, so what did it take to light the fire in this conflict? A worthless fellow. Yeah.
And years of history of relations and bad feelings.
Okay, yes. Is there anything significant about who he actually is? It says something about him besides his name. He's a Benjamite. Ooh, interesting. You know who the Benjamites are?
Well, Saul was a Benjamin.
King Saul was a Benjamite, so was Mephibosheth. Okay, so here we are, okay, and basically he says it here, what portion do we have in David? It's kind of like, he's not one of us, okay, and so here we go, folks, go home and get your guns. Okay, all right, so why would he, Paul?
I think one of the explanations too with all the tribal conflict is going back to Genesis when Jacob pseudo-blesses his sons.
Yes.
And when you read through that,
Oh, yes.
essentially he was telling his sons, you're going to fight with each other.
Yes. Yeah.
Always going to be at each other's throat. One's going to have the upper hand more than the other.
Yep.
One's going to have greater territory than the other. And it just went on and on. So now what David's experiencing is basically the fulfillment
Of the prophecy.
of that prophecy
Yes.
of their characteristics. And
Yeah.
it would carry on even after David. For that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it would be interesting to go back and look at those verses, folks, on when Israel is giving out the blessing, okay? And I can't remember all the details, but I kind of remember when I've read it before, it was kind of like, woo, that's kind of,
in Genesis
pretty-
49,
okay?
yes, Genesis 49, is Jacob's prophecy concerning his sons is the subtitle.
Oh, interesting. And here it is.
Yes.
Here it is. So Spirit of God was revealing historical things long in advance. Okay. What do you think Sheba's motivation was here, other than, a rejection of David as king? What's he want?
To win and get up in a high part of it.
Say again, Joel?
To succeed and be a high part of it.
Yeah,
At the forefront of it.
yeah,
Well, he doesn't seemingly have much going for him, because he's already introduced as a worthless fellow.
Yeah, but that's God's description of him.
He wants inheritance.
Pardon me?
He mentions inheritance. We have no inheritance.
Right. Yeah.
What are you after then?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you, the word worthless in there is kind of like, I'm sure when he stood up, he didn't see himself as a worthless person. Neither did all the people who were listening to him. What was his objective for himself? To be a leader. Power. He wanted, and he's outspoken. He's obviously well-spoken, and he must be, because he got the attention of everybody. He wasn't just some guy over there. Well, what's with that guy? You know, tell him to shut up.
Well, he had a trumpet.
He had a
What
trumpet.
do you mean about that? He
Yeah.
blew the trumpet. What do you mean by the?
Oh, okay. There are different, okay.
There can't be that many trumpets, maybe it's just the only trumpet.
Sometimes when a trumpet was blown, it was a call to battle, to war. And so you blow a trumpet in the midst of what is a heated discussion, argument, whatever, it's kind of like everybody's ears would perk up, like, what is happening here? You know, okay? So he favors the house of Saul, basically, okay? I said here, from the commentaries I was reading, came across, it said Sheba was likely an officer in the Northern Army, even at this time. So he was well known. He wasn't just some guy who jumped up and started yelling, okay? He already had some position of authority. If the 10 tribes seceded from the kingdom, perhaps he's thinking for himself he could become commander of their army instead of maybe just an officer or a general. Okay, that was more historical information. There's nothing in the scripture that says that he had those titles, but it seems that could be true. Okay, all right. So verse 2. So all the men of Israel withdrew from following David and followed Sheba the son of Bichri, but the men of Judah remained steadfast to their king from the Jordan even to Jerusalem. Okay, so what was the result?
Israel followed the worthless man.
Yes, yeah, they do. So they've actually gone away. They separate. And David returns to Jerusalem, and the 10 tribes go home. Okay? So now we have a divided nation again. Okay? Verse 3, which is kind of interesting. Then David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, the concubines whom he had left to keep the house, and placed them under guard, and provided them with sustenance, but did not go into them. So they were shut up until the day of their death, living as widows. Interesting. Why would David put these 10 concubines in seclusion for the rest of their lives? You have to think back to what happened.
They've been defiled by his son.
By Absalom, right? Remember, he brought them out, okay? Whatever he did with them publicly, it said he, he had relations with these concubines, which was like a slap in his father's face, okay? And so, because of this, David recognizes they've been defiled, and so he cares for them, he provides for them, but he puts them in seclusion. Okay.
It's strange that you've got all this unrest happening, and the only action David takes is to hide the concubines away. He's not meeting with these people and trying to lead the nation and unite people and making them feel good. He's running home and hiding the concubines. Like, he's a terrible leader in some ways. It's a disaster.
Can we get a sense of, okay, that could very well be true, what you're saying, why? Why is he taking such a low profile? Yeah, go ahead.
Must have been my train of thought. Was he waiting for God's timing,
That could be.
direction?
He has done that in the past, waiting for God to do something.
Sometimes we see something that's really good to do,
Yeah,
but it's not God's time for us to do it.
okay. You notice this whole conflict here between the northern tribes and Judah. What does David say?
He hasn't said anything.
Exactly. Who does the talking?
Everyone else. Even the worthless guy's talking.
Even the worthless one. Isn't it interesting? We'll never forget this guy, will we?
Putting away the concubines, would that be kind of like a symbol of purification?
I think so, yes. Yeah, purifying the court,
Yeah.
okay? Because they've been abused, okay? When David fled, okay, he had two options when Absalom began his revolt. What two options did he have?
Fight or flight.
Yeah, fight or flee, right? Yeah. And he chose to flee. And why did he do that?
Less people would be killed.
Yes, was he thinking of himself so much?
I don't think he knew the victory was guaranteed.
No, because he might have thought that this was part of God's discipline on him, and he was going to lose the reign. Now, he knew from God that Solomon was going to be king. Okay, so I mean, he was resting on the fact, but maybe, again, I'm just talking off the top of my head here, okay? Okay, God's removing me, and he's going to bring Solomon in. Because Solomon was already, at this stage, Solomon's a young man. He's not a boy, okay? All right? And David is at this time, is up around 60-something years of age. Okay, he's only got about 10 years left in his reign. Okay, so Solomon, I'm not sure, I know we talked about this before, but Solomon would have probably been at least in his 20s or 30s at this point. Okay? All right. So maybe he, at that time, was thinking, okay, God's removing me, but he didn't want to cause more conflict within the nation. Okay? He could have called the army. He could have called, and brought about a civil war. Okay? And he wasn't about to do that. Okay? And so now we're on the backside of the conflict. Okay? And here he is again. He's taking the low road, so to speak. Okay? I think Jim was intimating here is what he said, he's waiting to see what God is going to do. He doesn't speak up. He lets the leaders, the elders of the tribes, go at one another, and he's listening. He's very much aware that all of this is because of him, okay? But I think he's letting God work it out. I mean, he could have stood up, couldn't he have? He had, he has the right. He could have stepped into that conversation and say, God appointed me, okay? So back off. You're out of line, okay? But again, would it have introduced another conflict? Could have gotten even more heated. maybe. I don't know. I mean, you can't judge David's heart, but in a sense, knowing his history, he is so often, when he's been in the midst of a conflict, he leaves it in God's hands to work it out. He doesn't try to maneuver things to his advantage. Okay? And so that could be what's happening here as well. And so he goes back to Jerusalem, and as Karen was saying here, I think in a sense he was cleaning house, cleaning things up. Okay? He wasn't being malicious towards these concubines. He was just, it's appearances. Okay? Everyone would know that these concubines had been abused, whether raped, whatever. Okay? And so he is, and I'm sure they're embarrassed. Okay? And so he provides for them a quiet life away from scrutiny. Okay? And he cleans the court of any controversy. Okay? So, any...
Does that sound like Jesus, like tending to the weak and like purifying?
Yeah, because I mean, the Lord himself, you know, when there were those who were, now this isn't exactly the way, but I mean, take the woman at the well and how he treated her, or how about the woman that was caught in adultery and how he took care of that situation and told her, I don't condemn you either, go and, you know, don't do this anymore, okay? And so he cares for these ladies, okay? They were his, but they had been abused, and he still cares for them, but he provides a protection for them in a sense, okay? He realizes they're in seclusion, but I'm not sure just what that looked like, okay? But at least they're not out in the public eye. Oh, she's one of those. Okay? Because we know that in Israel, anybody who had been involved in improper relations drew the scorn of the people, right or wrong. Okay? And so David is caring for them in a gentle, gentle way, I think. Yeah. Okay, moving on here. Let's go on to verses 4 to 13 of chapter 20. 24 to 13. Okay. Then the king said to Amasa, "Call out the men of Judah for me within 3 days, and be present here yourselves." Oh, here he is. He's finally speaking up. Okay? So Amasa went to call out the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time which he had appointed him. And David said to Abishai, "Oh, Abishai, guess who's showing up?" What do we know? Okay, here we are. Here comes your test again. Who's Abishai?
David's cousin?
Okay, and what other relationship does he have within the court? Or in the, yeah, somebody else. Who else is close to David? Joab. And Abishai is related to him as well. Okay, all right. What do we know about Abishai's history? He's a bit rash. Yeah, he's the one. Okay, it would say, "Let's go kill him. Let's dispatch this guy." Okay, all right. But anyways, so here he is. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba," oh, interesting. "Now Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servants and pursue him, so that he does not find for himself fortified cities and escape from our sight." Okay, carrying on. So Joab's men went out after him, along with the Cherethites and the Pelethites. Who are the Cherethites and Pelethites? I'm really putting people on the spot tonight, aren't I?
Well, they were not of the mighty men, they were.
Yes, some of them were.
Okay.
Some of them were.
Mercenary groups, or whatever you want to call them.
They were mercenaries. They were hired soldiers, okay? All right, so he sends some of these guys, notice it that he sends them out rather than Israelites or those of Judah, whatever. Okay, he sent them and all the mighty men. So how many mighty men were there?
There was 30 in that inner group.
Okay.
600 or something.
600, yeah, okay, yeah. They were the ones that were kind of the inner circle, okay? All right. And so they went out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. When they were at the large stone which is in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet them. Now Joab was dressed in his military attire, and over it was a belt with a sword in its sheath fastened at his waist. And as he went forward, it fell out. That's interesting. Joab said to Amasa, "Is it well with you, my brother?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. Okay, I'm going to go, okay. But Amasa was not on guard against the sword which was in Joab's hand, so he struck him in the belly with it and poured out his inward parts on the ground and did not strike him again, and he died. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, okay, there's the relation, brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri. Now there stood by him one of Joab's young men and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." But Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the middle of the highway. And when the man saw that all the people stood still, he removed Amasa from the highway into the field and threw a garment over him when he saw that everyone who came by him stood still. This has more in here than you'd pick up just by reading it. You go, what is going on?
He's causing a traffic jam.
Yeah.
401, there's an accident, everybody's slowing down.
Yeah, right. Okay, so, all right, first of all, let's address this question. So what are David's concerns?
Sheba's going to lead a revolt.
Yes, that's one. That's the first one. Yep. Okay, and he wants to put this thing down quickly. Okay, so what does he do first? What does David do?
He calls together all his soldiers.
Yes.
All his men.
Who does he use? Who does he assign to do the job?
Abishai.
No, Amasa. Okay, he appoints Amasa to get the troops together. Okay, and gives him 3 days. But he doesn't come back in 3 days. Okay? Now, okay, why would he say 3 days? Why did he put a time limit on this? Instead of just saying, go out and gather the troops, okay? I was kind of like, I was thinking when I was doing all this, you remember, we all think back, those of us who were around at the time, 9/11, okay? All right, and when President Bush said that we're going to retaliate quickly, you know, and go after the terrorists in Iraq and Iran, wherever, okay, I thought, okay, this week, nothing. It was two to 3 months before anything happened, okay, because it took time to put all this together and the logistics, okay? You know, it wasn't an immediate thing. So David gives 3 days to Amasa to go out and gather all the troops of Judah. Why 3 days? Why did he put this restriction?
Well, he likely knew how long it was going to take Sheba to get to a fortified city, and he didn't know he was being pursued, and he needed to get to him before
Yeah,
he figured stuff out.
Yeah, before he got anywhere where he could defend himself, okay? And before he could, okay, had Sheba actually organized the troops of Israel at this point? No, the only thing he had said was, everyone to your tents, which basically is a call to battle, okay? Go and get armed. We're gonna go after, Judah, okay? Whatever. And so you had to move swiftly and cut this guy off before he got organized. All right. Now, who's the other major player in this situation?
There's Abishai and Joab.
Okay. All right. Abishai being the brother of Joab, so it's kind of like the Lone Ranger and Tonto, in a sense. Okay. Or Batman and Robin or whatever. But, okay, so he's a kind of a sidekick. Okay, so what do we know about Joab?
He kind of react quickly to anything that happened, sort of lit up and look out.
Yeah, what is his position at this point? What is he?
He's the head honcho of the troops, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the commander, isn't he? So, pretend you're Joab. And King David has just appointed Amasa to be the leader in this situation. How do you feel? Slighted. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, it's kind of a put down. And so he, and I can see, with Joab and knowing his history, I'm thinking the wheels are turning here. Okay. What's really going on here? Am I going to be commander for much longer? And David's appointing other people, and so, yeah, got to do something about this. All right. So actually it was David okay, now let's go back to the text here for a little bit here, okay? Okay, first David sends out Amasa to get the troops together in 3 days, but he doesn't report back within 3 days. So David sends who? Abishai. But notice that Joab goes along, okay? And because Abishai has always deferred to his brother, I think he basically is in this situation. He's letting Joab take the reins, okay? All right. Okay, now, perhaps, okay, I'm thinking back because I just looked at my notes here. Joab had already been demoted, okay, prior to this, okay? And Abishai is the logical choice to carry out the pursuit since Amasa had failed to gather the army in the designated time, okay? I'm trying to recall when that actually happened. Paul, do you remember when?
Yeah, it's because he had killed Absalom.
Oh, that's it. Yes. Just escaped
But
me.
he was instructed
Not to kill Absalom. Yes.
bring him back alive.
Right. And so he'd already been in. Sorry, folks, I missed my cue on that one. So he was not commander at this point. He had been demoted. Okay. But notice how he still asserts himself. He gets into the middle of it. Okay. He probably shouldn't have been there at all.
He'd be
Okay.
one of the mighty men, though, at the very least, I would assume.
It's possible. Yeah.
Basically, he's telling David, you're gonna have to kill me to get rid of me.
What is it? Okay, I mean, that's a very valid point. Joab has some information that he can use against David. Do you know what that is? Go back. You have to go back. When David had already committed adultery with Bathsheba, and her husband came home and wanted to go to her, what does David arrange? Yeah, for him to be put out in the front line, and who is given that instruction? Joab. So Joab, and David told him so that he will die. So Joab knows the truth. Okay? And he has held that information all these years. Okay? And he hasn't acted on it yet, but he could. Okay? All right. Going on here. Do you think Abishai is surprised to see Amasa and the army gathered at Gibeon? No? I think Abishai was sent out because Amasa hadn't come back and reported, and so it could be that Abishai is thinking that it hadn't happened. Okay? But then he comes upon Amasa, and here's the army. It's gathered. 3 days, or however many days past the 3 days, okay?
There's one problem, John.
Yep.
It's not gathered where they're supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, they're in the wrong place.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right? They're at Gibeon. They're not supposed to be at Gibeon.
But is it really a coincidence that he wants to kill Amasa and he ends up exactly where Amasa is? That's a little funny. Because here's Amasa takes his spot in the army, and now he just happens to show up there and spill his guts everywhere. I don't know. I don't think he was surprised to see him there. I think word got around. He knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, we're not in the technological age there, but the word of mouth is, follow this road, you'll get to them.
Yeah.
This is where they are.
It's a lot of people, too.
Oh yeah, this is an army.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got however many, you know, you already got the 600, plus you've got who else, okay? All right, let's see, Gibeon is about 6 miles northwest of Jerusalem, okay? Yes, Joel?
Where does it say that Amasa had actually brought the army together?
Where what?
Where does it say he had got the army together?
It's just, oh, okay, just a minute. Okay, let's see here.
Verse 8 says, Amasa came to meet them at this big stone.
Okay, yep.
Joab was dressed in his military attire.
Okay, I think it's because when we get further down here, it talks about no one would go, when he was murdered, the army, no one would pass by his body, okay? They just froze. So the assumption is that's the army that was there. And I mean, an interesting question is, why did they just freeze?
Or they're complexed by, okay, who actually is the senior officer of the military?
Yeah, who's in charge here?
Because the guy that called us, he's writhing on the ground,
Yep,
and some nice guy dragged him off the road,
yes,
covered him up.
yeah,
But they also know there's issues with Abishai and Joab. Well, one, they know Joab just killed him.
mm-hmm,
But there's also issues of Abishai and Joab with David.
yep,
So who do we now follow? Like,
yeah, they're in,
they're
yeah,
confused.
it's a stunned silence, you know, like, what just happened? What do we do? Who are we supposed to follow? You know, I mean, Abishai and Joab come on the scene, and our leader has just been murdered in the road.
Basically, it's choosing who am I not going to get in trouble for?
Right. Yes. What do? Do we just go home?
Yeah.
Or do we have to follow this guy now? Well, they're in the army. They would know that Joab had been demoted. And in their minds, they might be thinking, he's taking it back? Yeah, you can see why they're in confusion. They don't know what to do. Anyway, okay. Okay, I wrote here in my notes, that Gibeon's about 6 miles northwest of Jerusalem, and it's likely that he was on his way to get David's orders, okay? Because it's only 6 miles away, so they could march that in a few hours, okay? 6 miles with an army, you might take a half a day, okay? It'd be a little slower than just a few people, but so it's quite possible they were on their way to David, because David said to come back, right? Bring the army. All right. Let's look at verses 7. In verses 7 to 10, I wrote the question, do you think Joab has been looking for this opportunity?
Oh, wait,
Yeah?
he didn't waste much time.
No, he didn't. No, because he had disobeyed David in killing Absalom, and he's been demoted, and he's not happy about it.
There could be another position too, and that is, he likely knew when Amasa was supposed to be back.
Yeah? Well, he would, because Abishai was sent,
Yes.
and Abishai was... we don't know how Joab got into that mix, other than maybe Abishai went right to Joab.
Yes, and basically said, we gotta bail out Amasa because he's not here. He's late.
Uh-huh.
And then in Joab's mind, he sees Amasa, one, in dereliction of his duty to the king.
Yeah.
And secondly, the opportunity to remove this guy
Okay.
with just cause, in his own mind anyways, with just cause
Yeah.
for his failure.
Yeah. Joab resents having been demoted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And he obviously wants to be back in command. So if you want to be back in command, you've got to remove anyone who's in your way. And that's what he does. Right? He's also, okay, there's the other thing, his pride's been hurt. He's been humiliated. Okay? He's been removed, okay? And this would be public knowledge, okay, that Joab had been removed from being commander of the army. And so he's not about to defer to Amasa. He resents him, okay? Now, how does he execute his plan? How does he execute the execution? It's not, from the reading, it's kind of confusing, but okay, Karen?
With a kiss.
Well, okay, no, before that.
Or before that?
The whole sword falling from his waist, is that what you're...
Yeah, okay.
So he's pretending to be stumbling and he's going to kiss the guy and then gets him off guard.
Yeah, because however he had his sword, he had it positioned so that if he stumbled, it would fall out of the scabbard on the ground. And so when he retrieves it, but it's out of the scabbard. Okay? So it's ready for whatever. Okay? And so he catches Amasa off guard, doesn't he? He's not expecting to be attacked.
It's almost like he tried to make it an accident.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oops.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly the way it was handled.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So he retrieves it, but he hasn't put it back in the scabbard yet, because he's very close to Amasa, and so he pretends to greet him. And at the same time, he reaches in, he grabs him by the beard, gives him a kiss on the cheek, and
it stresses he did not strike him again. Because if he'd hit him twice, that's no longer an accident.
I get you. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he did not strike him again. It's like, wow.
How'd that happen?
Oopsie daisy.
It's, who was it? Someone else in Scripture where, when he was being chased, okay, and he thrust his sword backwards, okay, I can't remember who all it was, but at any rate, okay, all right. So now you're in verse 10 there. It says, then Joab and Abishai his brother pursued Sheba the son of Bichri. So what has happened to Joab now?
He seems to have taken charge.
He's back in command with Abishai, as is, who was actually the one who was given the authority, but it's Joab who takes it, okay? So he's actually usurped Abishai's commission, all right? Does Abishai object?
He's the younger brother, and he's always been the younger brother. And
He's always going to defer to Joab. Yeah, it's just, let's put it this way. Joab is a very imposing person. You know, he's very out there in presenting himself. And Abishai is, what would you say? He would always defer because he's, what's the word I'm looking for? Timid, right. He's outspoken, okay, but when it comes to his older brother, he's intimidated by him, okay, and he's going to, okay, whatever you say. Let's do that, okay. All right, so in verses 11 to 13, here we have this dilemma. Okay, we already talked about it. Okay, do they follow Joab now? Or don't they? And they've got the dead leaders in the road. And so you basically have to get him out of the way so that they can focus on the new leader. All right? That's the way I see it anyways, okay? So now in verse 14, it says, now he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel, even Beth-Makkah, and all the Berites, and they were gathered together and also went after him. So here we have, okay. The thing is, what I'm getting from this is that not all of Israel followed Sheba, okay? And Joab was able to gather the Israelites to the army, okay? Our time is about gone here. Let's just finish this thing up with Sheba, okay? Verses 15 to 22. They came and besieged him in Abel Beth-Makkah, and they cast up a siege ramp against the city, and it stood by the rampart, and all the people who were with Joab were wrecking destruction in order to topple the wall. Then a wise woman called from the city, Hear, please tell Joab, come here that I may speak with you. So he approached her, and the woman said, Are you Joab? And he answered, I am. Then she said to him, Listen to the words of your maidservant. And he answered, I'm listening. Then she spoke, saying, Formerly they used to say, They will surely ask advice at Abel, and thus they ended the dispute. I am of those who are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You are seeking to destroy a city, even a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? Joab replied, Far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. Oh yeah, right. Such is not the case, but a man from the hill country of Ephraim Sheba the son of Bichri by name has lifted up his hand against King David. Only hand him over, and I will depart from the city. And the woman said to Joab, behold, his head will be thrown to you over the wall. Woohoo! This woman has a lot of clout in the city, obviously. Okay, all right. Then the woman wisely came to all the people, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it to Joab. So he blew the trumpet, and they were dispersed from the city, each to his tent. Joab also returned to the city of Jerusalem. So how does this woman demonstrate her wisdom? Pardon me? Yeah, okay. But even before that,
Well, she asked to speak to whoever's in charge.
yeah, exactly.
She seems to know who Joab is.
Oh, yeah, I think the word's out. Okay, so what does she ask him?
Why are you destroying your own city?
Yeah.
City of God.
Do you think the inhabitants of this city know why Joab and the army of Judah are there attacking them?
No.
No, they don't know. So she asked the question, what have we done? Why are you here attacking us? And so she assures Joab that the people of Abel are not in league with Sheba. Okay? Obviously. All right? Otherwise, she wouldn't offer his head. Okay?
I wouldn't want to be named Sheba other than that city right there. Anyone named Sheba.
Yeah, you'd go into hiding real quick. Okay? But she knew who the guy was. Obviously, these are people who have come into this city who don't live here. Okay? And so, yeah, what value is there in Joab destroying the whole city for this one guy? Okay? And so she went to, obviously, to the leaders of the town, and they slew Sheba and threw his head over the wall. Okay. We'll finish the chapter, and then we'll continue next week. Now Joab was over the whole army of Israel. Here we go again. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and Pelethites, and Adoram was over the forced labor, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was the recorder, and Sheva was scribe, and Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira the Jerite was also a priest to David. So the chapter here closes with the second listing of David's officers, okay? And it's interesting to note, right from the beginning of there, that Joab's now commander of the army again. So David has backed off.
And there's no one else. He killed them all.
Pardon me?
There's
Yeah.
no one else either. He killed all of his competition. It's not like David.
And he probably would continue to do so.
Yeah.
So David, see, I think, as I said prior, David knows what Joab has on him. He knows the truth. And so he's done what he had to do with Joab, but go carefully. And so in this situation, when Joab has reestablished himself as commander, David just kind of looks the other way. Just let it go, you know. All right. We'll go on next week. I said the book of 2 Samuel closes with two national calamities, a drought caused by King Saul's sin, and a plague caused by King David's sin. Between these two tragic events, there's a summary of 4 victories, a list of David's mighty men, and 2 psalms written by David. And so we'll start dealing with that next week, okay? And if you read ahead in the rest of chapter 21 and 22. I'm not even sure how far, we probably won't even finish chapter 22, but we'll get started on it next week. Anyway, so there's some really interesting things in there. So if you read those chapters, then you come kind of with a little bit of knowledge for our discussion. Okay. Thank you, folks. Have a good rest of your evening.
Vern's gonna be away on Sunday. Yeah, no Bible study.